So in the word emotional eating is the word emotions. So emotional eating has something to do with our emotions. So let's dive in today and chat a little bit more about how this plays a role in this pattern. So if you're new here, welcome. My name is Michelle. I'm a certified holistic nutritionist specializing in emotional eating. And I wanted to share with you a little bit more about emotions. So emotions are a big part of the emotional eating puzzle. It's not everything, but it's something we really need to understand in order to move through this. And so when I was emotionally eating, if I look back, I didn't call it emotional eating. I knew I would eat food when I was, upset, or just sometimes just be binging and not realizing that I was triggered into these deeper emotions. And so a lot of things were going on and I didn't know what was actually happening. And when I reflect back and when I eventually figured out what was going on, I like to call it emotional eating, because whether you're emotionally eating or binging, usually it stems from the same place. They're a little bit different, and I've shared with that in the video last week, but emotional eating has to do with our emotions, and it's how we use food to cope or soothe ourselves from any uncomfortable emotions, from any stressors. And the reason we do this is because we weren't taught how to be with our emotions, to move through them, to navigate them, to understand them. And as a society, that is usually what we see. We usually feel a lot of shame around our emotions. We want to disconnect from them. We almost habitually do this and not realize it. But when it's with food and it's impacting our body, that's where the flag, sort of the lights start turning on, and we're like, we need to do something about this. But if you look at your life, you're probably doing this in other areas of your life as well, distracting yourself from whatever you're feeling in your body. And so our emotions are really important. And because we weren't taught what emotions are and how to navigate them, we don't know how to actually use them. So emotions are information. It can be boiled down to something so simple. Our body, when we're very young, we are sensing our environment. We're sensing how we feel. And so we're getting information from our environment, from internally, and that translates into sensations, which translate into what we would call an emotion. So if you feel an agitation in your stomach, that might mean nervousness or anxiety. Then you have a fear about something that might happen. And so we're creating this. And if we don't explore this emotion, we don't feel it through and allow it to be there and to hear the message, because our emotions are like sped up thoughts, then we don't know what they're actually telling us about our life. And it's not to say that the story is true. It's true for us. The emotion is true for us, but the story might not be exactly the right thing. So that's just a little bit about emotions. And our emotions, for example, if we feel anger, it could be that a boundary of ours was crossed. If we feel sadness, someone might have hurt us or did something that didn't make us feel good. We might feel anxious because there's a fear coming up. And so all of these emotions are giving us information, and it's our job, and it would have been our parents' job, to sit with us, to move through these uncomfortable emotions, to understand them, to physically move through them in our body. It's like a reaction, because these emotions, they're actually biochemicals in our body. We need to allow them to be there, to hear their message. And that brings our nervous system back to calm. And when we're calm, we can start understanding what this is about. So yes, someone might have hurt us and it doesn't feel good in our body. But once we calm down and feel that hurt and that pain, our nervous system will go back to calm. We won't perpetually feel pain. That's in that calm spot where we can decide, with the help of our parents or caregivers, what's our next step? Is this a person we want in our life? Is there something we could change? Is there something we need to say to them? And it kind of comes through, it will resonate with us. Or, our parents will tell us, this is a boundary and this is how you can stay safe. And that's what we need. The emotion is giving us information about our life. But when we're emotional eaters, all of that information, we weren't taught how to be with it. And so we start using food because those emotions, because they're sensations in our body, they're uncomfortable. And we start putting food on top of it. We make this association that this feels uncomfortable, which it does. And instead of moving through the emotion, we decide to put food on top of it, Or maybe our parents gave us a cookie or decided to put food on top of it, or told us we were too sensitive and we had to figure out how to cope with this. So in order to start resolving our emotional eating, we need to really start being aware of our emotions. And this is not easy when you put food on top of it, or you've told yourself for most of your life that something's wrong with you to feel a certain way. You're not strong enough if you feel grief. You're not resilient if you have sadness. You're not tough enough if you feel hurt. You're telling yourself these messages and they're going on in the background. And food, when you're emotionally eating, that's the only indicator you have that something more is going on, because there's all of this stuff going on under the surface. And so we need to really understand emotions are information. They're not good. They're not bad. We need to process and integrate them, understand them. And doing this will allow us to actually meet our true needs, because they're giving us information about what's not working in our life, or we might have a limiting idea or limiting belief that we need to look at, or we have a fear that we need to find a better solution to. Because if we don't look at these emotions and we keep putting food on top of it, we're going to keep avoiding situations or making decisions that don't help us in our life. And we're going to keep using food, and it's going to show up in our body. And if we try to restrain or restrict ourselves with the diets or the exercise or, the pills or the drugs or the surgery, it's not looking at what's really driving this pattern. We need to look deeper. And so one way of doing that is to understand what our emotions really are. And then we're learning new ways of being with food and our body, because we have been also limiting ourselves around that and restricting ourselves, which plays into this, these limiting beliefs and the shame spiral that triggers our emotional eating pattern. And so this is a big thing we look at inside of the emotional eating evolution program. We are evolving how we are with emotions. It's emotional eating evolution. We're using emotional eating to evolve ourselves, to actually meet our true needs, to learn how to be with emotions. And it's not a linear path. It's not X, Y, Z. It's not A, B, C. It is something that is multifaceted, and we need to look at all the layers and see how it all comes together. And so one key part of what we do is look at emotions. We're looking at when you're triggered into emotional eating around food. So when you're not truly hungry, we're looking at when you're emotionally hungry. But in order to see that, we have to make sure you are nourishing yourself. You're moving away from the restrictive mentality around food. We're also looking at when you're triggered into emotional eating because you feel shame around your body or how you should be. And we're learning how to be with the body, understand the body, the rituals the body needs. And then we are, through this process, because we're looking at the emotions, how to be with the emotions, how to feel safe and resource with them, and shift how we look at our emotions and actually integrate them and experience them in a somatic way in the body. That's how we actually process and move through this. It's not just thinking about, I feel sad and now I do this. We have to physically move through these sensations because they are a physical reaction in our body. We can't just keep stopping it or intellectualizing it. This is an embodied process. And so this is really important to understand. Emotions are so important, and I talk about them a lot because they're a really big key part of this. But if you were to just do the emotional work or the somatic work without understanding your overall pattern in a structured way, you still wouldn't quite resolve your emotional eating pattern. You have to see how they're tied into your certain triggers and how it's playing out in your life. And that's what we're doing and exploring throughout the program. We're looking at your food and mood journal, your patterns, and just seeing how this is all sort of multi-layered and played in so that you get to know yourself better, you get to understand yourself better, and you're able to meet your true needs. And this is what leads to physical ease and peace in your body and around food, because you're getting into the root. You're not restricting or willpowering. Even by simply observing your pattern, you might start to not binge as much because you're now starting to put the focus on yourself, give yourself the attention, and start meet the needs that you have been longing to have met. So this is something that is so important to understand. So emotions are going to be a big part of this, along with true nourishment and body acceptance. And so if you are ready to start resolving your emotional eating, I'd love to invite you to download my free guide called What Are You Truly Hungry For? In this guide, it gives you the first tangible steps to resolving this pattern, which is learning to discern true from emotional hunger and starting to see where your triggers are coming up. This is a doorway to start peeling the layers of the pattern back. So you can download the guide at the link below. And if you are interested in the Emotional Eating Evolution program, you want to find out more about it, you can find out more at the link below. This is a 12-week container full of lots of guidance, support, a step-by-step methodology, and deeper tools to actually get to the root of this pattern so you can start feeling at ease and confident around food and in your body. So if you have any questions about what I've shared with you today, please let me know. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and I look forward to sharing more with you, and I hope you have a great day.